From the Bayou City, Houston, Texas, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie, and this is Coast to Coast AM, originating from the studios tonight of KTRH News Radio 740. What a time we have had in Houston. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. But later tonight, almost Full Moon Friday, open lines. I say that because it's officially full moons tomorrow, full moon, but we're going to call it tonight. And Tommy and I came up to Houston for a major event. We had just a wonderful time, 1,300 people here, and the people in Houston are absolutely gracious, as they are all around the United States. And, of course, it was a 3-hour flight from Los Angeles to Houston. So Tom and I, producer Tom, brought our portable DVD players, and, of course, I watched Charlton Heston's cartoon. That'll tell you where I come from, a little history there for me. Tommy took Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That'll tell you where his head is directed. Here's some of the news of the day, then we'll get into our special guest this hour. Common children's cold and cough medicines are coming under scrutiny from federal drug regulators who say the remedies and the recommended doses have not been studied enough in children. This is a big story. Dr. Charles Ganley, who is a top Food and Drug Administration official, says the agency was revisiting the risks and benefits of the use of these drugs in children, especially those younger than 2 years old. Most over-the-counter cold and cough medicines have been insufficiently tested in children, they say. So if your little child has a cold and the doctor recommends this, talk to him about the study and the story you just heard. A deadly winter storm just walloped parts of the plains and Midwest, keeping highways and schools closed, knocking out power and piling up huge snowdrifts on Friday. At least 6 storm-related deaths have been reported in the region since the snowfall began on Wednesday. Blizzard conditions shut down roads in Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, leaving some areas with well over a foot of snow by Friday morning. The storm was part of a larger line of thunderstorms and snowstorms that stretched from Minnesota to the Gulf. Tornadoes killed 20 people in Missouri, Georgia, Alabama, including 8 students in an Alabama high school. The most comprehensive weather study ever has confirmed what we all know, that the weather really is worse on the weekends. I don't know why, but meteorologists evaluated 6.3 million pieces of climate data from all across Europe between 1990 and 2005. Their conclusion: on weekends, the weather is worse than on weekdays. They found that Wednesdays have the highest average temperatures, Saturdays are the lowest, Monday was the driest day, and Saturday definitely the wettest. Simultaneous warming on Earth and Mars suggests that our planet's recent climate changes have a natural and not a human-induced cause, according to a Russian scientist theory. In 2005, data from NASA's Mars Global Surveyor and Odyssey missions revealed that the carbon dioxide ice caps near Mars' South Pole have been diminishing for 3 summers in a row. The Russian scientist says, the Mars data is evidence that the current global warming on Earth is being caused by changes with the sun. The International Cassini spacecraft has beamed back to Earth never-before-seen angles of Saturn from high above and below its majestic rings. If you have a computer, go to the coasttocoastam.com website, look under the feature story, and look at the dazzling new photographs of Saturn. And the moon will turn shades of amber and crimson Saturday night as it passes behind the Earth's shadow in the first total lunar eclipse in 3 years. The eclipse will be at least partly visible from Asia to the Americas, although those in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East will have the best view. In a moment, we're going to talk with our science advisor, head of the EnterpriseMission.com, Richard C. Hoagland, about all things space in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie, definitely deep in the heart of Texas at the studios of KTRH, where we had a major event tonight. And as I said, 1,300 people showed up at the Verizon Theater. Had just a wonderful time just talking about the program and answering questions. And we did a little book signing for people who came by. Had an opportunity to see my cousin and her 2 kids. And just a great time. But we're back here now, ready to do the program for you. And don't forget, a little bit later on, we'll have our sort of full moon open lines for you. Richard C. Hoagland, of course, heads up the EnterpriseMission.com. And there are so many things going on in space this week. I thought it'd be a good idea to bring him in this hour. We'll open up the phone lines with Richard in about 20 minutes or so. Richard, how are you, my friend?
Good evening, George. You're in one of my old stomping grounds, good old Houston, Texas.
You know, this is a great city, and I had been here very briefly many years ago. It looks like the place is brand new. I mean, buildings have popped up. It's an affluent city, but I mean, it is
Texas
clean.
Oil money.
Yeah, it is.
Have you been down
they've done a great job.
To the Johnson Space Center?
No, I have not. I haven't had that kind of time. Tom and I flew in early today. Just got back from the event about an hour or so ago, and we're here doing the program, and then I'm back in Los Angeles tomorrow morning. So it's a bang bang day, but I've got to come back again and spend some time here.
It would be cool if you went down there. There's a lot of really great people in NASA, and you get to meet them when you get outside Washington. And of course, that's one of the new old headquarters for the new Return to the Moon and On to Mars part of NASA's program, which obviously I'm very interested in.
I am going to throw a lot of things your way this hour. One, of course, is I want to get your reaction to this Russian scientist who says that I might as well get your hat in the ring on this, one way or another.
Okay.
Global warming is natural. It is not human-induced. It's because of the sun. Now, that's his theory. How about you? You've had a chance to look at a lot of different people. You've read a lot of reports from various scientists and experts and climatologists. What do you say?
Well, that was a report that came out through the National Geographic earlier this week, and I was kind of intrigued that a mainstream news organization like the Geographic, which covers everything from geology to exploration to climatology to, the latest bandwagon of global warming, would actually cite him and list some of his papers. I don't think he's correct in one sense. He says it's natural. You think it's a cycle. Mm-hmm. I think it's a cycle. I think it's a hyperdimensional cycle. I think what we're doing with fossil fuels and carbon and methane emissions and all that is exacerbating a problem which already exists, and it's only making it worse. But I think that he's right for the wrong reasons, because he's looking at the sun as the culprit. The problem is, if you look at solar data, he cited, I believe, 3 Martian seasons of melting at the Martian polar caps.
Right.
We discussed this on our show, David Wilcox and I, who did a series called Interplanetary Weather that was kind of loosely based around some of the ideas in Art and Whitley's book, Global Coming Superstorm. Mm-hmm. And we looked at all kinds of mainstream data from all across the solar system, not just Mars. And every planet that has an atmosphere, from Venus all the way out to Pluto, George, is experiencing global warming. They're all getting hotter.
Then why aren't some of these other scientists agreeing with that?
Oh, yeah.
It is true. It's a fact, but they don't use that.
Unacknowledged fact by the global warming crowd here on Earth, who, for political reasons, don't really want to talk about that for some reason. But, in fact, all across the solar system, everything is getting warmer. Now, our model, our HD model, says this is part of a grand natural cycle of the solar system, which is coming up to a crescendo maybe as soon as 2012. It could be part of that ancient set of, knowledge and prophecies from Mayans and other indigenous cultures.
Sure.
The fact is we're looking at real data, real spacecraft, real telescope, real science here, and there's no question it's going on. It's just not been acknowledged in the mainstream until the Geographic a couple days ago chose to put forward this Russian climatologist's views and data saying what we said on our show back in, I think it was 2004.
All right. So global warming has all kinds of possibilities. We're putting together a major roundtable discussion on it. I want you to be part of it. I want you to kind of look at it as the science advisor, okay?
Okay.
When we put this together, I may get someone like Lowell Ponte, who was on last night.
I listened carefully to him last night.
He's tough.
He's tough. He's accurate. He's incredibly political. I mean, he obviously has a political axe to grind against Al Gore.
Oh, he does not like Al Gore. No doubt about that.
But good, honest, sharp-edged opinions are what makes democracy. So I was very pleased that he was sticking to his guns. He seems to have done his homework. It would be refreshing to have a really honest debate. And if you could get Al Gore in the mix, that would be super cool. I don't think with him it's going to happen. But
he will be invited.
That would be a very gracious thing to do, George.
We've got up on the Coast to Coast AM website the incredible pictures of Saturn. I assume you have them or will have them on the EnterpriseMission.com website.
We will, and I've looked at them, and they are stunning. I mean, can you imagine that this spacecraft, the size of a Greyhound bus, has been orbiting Saturn now for, something like 2 years, maybe a little less, all by its little lonesome, robotic control, taking these images with stunning, long-focused telescopes, CCD cameras, like the kind of chips you have in any camera you'd buy over the counter at Costco, and it's sending back these astonishing, incredible panoramas. The thing I want everyone to look for when they get a chance to see the pictures, and I believe there are photos of the North Pole of Saturn, look for this incredible hexagonal geometric thing around the North Pole with straight edges.
What's the thing, Richard?
Well, the thing is a cloud formation which is twirling backwards at something like 300 miles per hour with the planet rotating forwards at, 1,400. And it was spotted by the Voyager missions way back in the 80s. But they didn't go over the poles, so they had to put together this view from oblique shots rectified in the computer. Mm-hmm. This is now a stunning real polar view with the spacecraft Cassini tweaked up into this high polar orbit by going past Titan several times. And they have this stunning view looking down on the entire Saturn system. And you can see this incredible hexagonal feature around the pole, symmetrical, which is an incredible hyperdimensional signature of the physics that we've just been describing all across the solar system, exemplifying itself in the Saturn system. I mean, George, that the four big outer planets, forgetting Pluto and that whole controversy for a second,
right.
The four big outer planets are all emitting more energy than they are getting from the sun.
Isn't that bizarre?
Unless you understand hyperdimensional physics, in which case the answer, where's that energy coming from, is very obvious. It's coming into this dimension from another dimension. Leaping back to your guest last night, Chris Moon, and his electronic genius Frank's, super box, which is pulling information, actual voices, coherent, intelligent transmissions from some other dimension, George. It's all part of a grand unified theory of everything. And as we're racing toward this nodal point of 2012, have you just looked around at just CNN? Just watch CNN for a few days and watch how everything is happening at an incredibly accelerated rate. The good guys are getting better, as I say, and the bad guys are getting worse. And problems that used to fester for years or sometimes a decade are being now resolved and confronted, and the bad guys are separated from the good guys within a matter of weeks or even days. For instance, look at this whole Walter Reed thing. Look at the rate at which that problem was brought out into public attention, addressed. People's heads are rolling. People are being fired. Something is being done. These poor guys who sat for 3 years in misery, ignored by everybody in the chain of command, suddenly are commanding front and center, and it's part of an accelerating matrix that we're embedded in, George, as part of the HD model. It affects not only physics and planets, it also affects people and politics.
I'm excited about these Cassini pictures, but I'm really excited about the possibilities of what we're going to see when we get some Europa pictures. They
flew the New Horizons spacecraft, which, as you know, launched about a little over a year ago, for Pluto on an extraordinarily fast track. It's the fastest spacecraft that humans have ever sent anywhere. because it takes 8 years to get to Pluto. They sent it to Jupiter to make a left-hand turn and take advantage of what's a process called a gravitational slingshot, where you basically steal some energy from the huge mass and momentum of Jupiter, and you fling the spacecraft faster out toward Pluto than it normally would be traveling. They gained something like 9,000 miles per hour through this maneuver, and Jupiter fell toward the sun by the width, get this, George, the width of one hydrogen atom.
That's it.
Kraft Eric and I figured this out in a bowling alley back in 1971. But in other words, that's the momentum exchange.
You are a believer that under the seas of Europa there could be some kind of life.
Right, and as the New Horizons spacecraft went through the Jovian system a couple days ago, it took a whole bunch of incredible new data and images and infrared and composition and all that. And then over the next several weeks, it's going to be playing that data back to Earth, and we're going to get even more remarkable images than we've had up to now, because it came closer than to some of these moons than the Galileo spacecraft did. Even though it was orbiting Jupiter, it had constraints, and they didn't want to go through the radiation belt, so it kind of hung out in the outskirts and didn't get the best pictures. Well, I've been focused on this moon, Europa, I think now for something like 20, 25, 24 years. I proposed in Star and Sky magazine back in 1980, I was the first one apparently to do this, that there would, A, be a liquid ocean under that ice. And in that liquid ocean, which could only be liquid if it had been liquid since the dawn of the solar system. If it had ever frozen, the calculations said it could not be thawed again. So if it was liquid, it had to be liquid from the beginning of everything that we understand in this system. And then by my logical reasoning, I said, okay, if Earth has had liquid water for about that period of time, which the science says it has, and it developed all this incredible diversity of life, if Europa was the only other place in the solar system with liquid water for an equivalent period of time, George, billions and billions of years, as my friend Carl might say, then what kind of incredible biological evolution in that ocean with those energy sources separated from Earth by, 500 million miles, could have taken place in those billions of years. So I forecast in this very long article, which is, by the way, on the Enterprise mission.com website, back in 1980, that when NASA got their act together and got spacecraft out to Jupiter and was able to investigate with orbiters and not just flybys, they would someday confirm, A, the liquid ocean, and B, that there was life in it. Well, the New Horizons spacecraft carried such interesting instruments that it may give us more information on the presence of that liquid ocean in the data that's going to be beamed back in the ensuing weeks.
So I have a surprise for you. You listened, of course, as you just mentioned, to the story about the telephone from the dead, Frank's
Absolutely.
box. You had sent me a very quick, instant message about possibly going down to Coral Castle and to see if we could conjure up Edward Leedskalnin with one of those phones.
Can I say something about that for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not just Ed. Understand, I'm not looking to talk just to Ed Leedskalnin.
Who you want to talk to?
If I'm right, if the HD model, the hyperdimensional physics model of literally information energy coming into this dimension from another dimension, and the relationship to where we go when we die and where we are before we are born, George, I mean, there's nothing small about this model, then what Ed Leedskalnin built in Coral Castle you might think of as a telephone switching amplifier. Because I know from the measurements we have done there, looking at the transits and eclipses with the Accutron, that it amplifies enormously these HD signals. So my reasoning is that if you took a gadget like Frank's box or Edison's, telephone to the dead.
Well, he never built it.
That he never built, but if he had,
out there somewhere.
right. And then there's another one that Art had on one night.
Yes.
What's the name of it?
I just had it last night.
It
starts
weird,
with an S.
Yeah, it makes this weird sound. It's basically a white noise.
It's a Spiritcom.
Spiritcom, yeah. If you took any of these gadgets to a place where the physics was amplified, So the signal, like in radio, if you have an amplifier, you have a faint signal, you build an amplifier and you make it bigger. I think what Coral Castle will do is not only be able to contact Ed, if this is real physics, but also anybody, that just by being in the right place, an amplifier at that location with that 1,100 tons of limestone surrounding us, we might get some extraordinary new information.
Well, stick around. We're going to have phone calls with Richard C. Hoagland when we come back. We'll also get Richard to update us on some of his projects that he's working on. Don't forget, Saturday night, a total lunar eclipse. Last one was 3 years ago. Don't miss it. Boy, here in Houston, it is so clear. I wish we were having it tonight. I'll be back in a moment. I'm George Norrie, and this is Coast to Coast AM, live from Houston, Texas. Okay, on weekends, of course, Saturday night, 6 p.m. Pacific time until 10 o'clock, Coast to Coast Live with Ian Punnett. And Ian, before you tell us about our program on Saturday, Red Elk says you stood him up 3 times. That's not like you.
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. Thank you so much, George, for having me on.
You are welcome.
Well, even the way you phrase that just catches my ear. I mean, I got about, half a dozen emails from people saying, how could you do that to Red Elk? I didn't do that to Red Elk. I don't know what the heck he's talking about.
He was on the program.
I heard.
And he's first of all, he started to compliment you, and then he got mad at you.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, Ian missed me 3 times and 3 appointments. And so it's not that he's going to put some kind of hex on you or anything. That's not his style.
Well, I'm rather fond of him, so I was really caught off by that.
And I know that's not like you. So
it didn't happen. I mean, it does not matter of not like me. I mean, it just it was just weird to hear him say such a thing, and I think it was a plea for.
Maybe he wants you to get together with him.
Yeah, well, how often does that strategy work? When someone does that for you, does that make you want to pick up the phone?
Yeah, right.
I mean, no, I was going out to the Northwest to look at a property, and I told him, you know what, I'm going to come in and I'm going to look in on you. I'm going to stop in, and I'm going to be taking a trip coming up, and I want to stop by. And I said, and I even knew the month that I was going to be coming by, but I didn't have a date. And as we got closer to that time, he had emailed in a couple of times and said, when are you coming? And I said, it doesn't look good, but I said, if it will be, it will be this. As it turned out, it was a piece of property that somebody in my wife's family wanted us to buy, and we got closer to that date, and we just couldn't do it. So we never had a date. We just had a kind of a month window.
Well, thanks for clearing that up.
And that's all it was. And then I said, well, maybe 6 months from now, and I said, like, maybe January, we'll come back and we'll do it. If we do it, I would love to stop in and see you. And I meant it. But, I mean, I hate the description he has of him standing by the front door for a month waiting for me to stop by.
Where are you, Ian?
Yeah, it's certainly not how it happened on this end.
Okay, now you've used up all your promo time, so what are you doing Saturday?
Oh, you can't have that happen because it's too much of a good show, and it's my birthday. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, by the way, in Los Angeles.
Yeah, we will get together.
Tomorrow night.
I won't stand you up 3 times.
See, now, there you go. If this becomes the running joke, it's going to absolutely break my heart. So tomorrow night, we have 3 people on. A doctor who made a history of experimenting on himself. We'll just leave that there for the first part.
All right, that's a good tease.
An investigator into 9/11 that makes the claim that he can prove that it was a large insurance scam.
All right.
Limited to a cabal of mafia and business types who were able to use planes by remote control. And then also a pilot with a major American commercial airline who will be on with him at one point into the conversation to talk about how indeed there are these major airlines that have planes that can be flown by remote control, and that there are planes, and I just got a little glimpse of this, so I don't have all of the info on it, but that these planes also now come with a self-destruct button.
I did not know that.
And that explains what happened over the Indian Ocean. Remember when the plane just disappeared?
Uh-huh.
That somebody hit that button, and that button is there as an anti-9/11 device.
Interesting.
To keep a plane from going into a building again. I know that sounds crazy, but we'll give it an airing.
Okay.
We'll see what's there coming up tomorrow night on Coast to Coast Live.
You got it. Cutting edge. Thanks, Ian, and I'll see you this weekend.
All right, buddy. Looking forward to it.
6 p.m. Pacific time to 10 p.m. on most stations all across the United States. Now, when we come right back, we'll take your phone calls and finish up our discussion with our science advisor and the head of the EnterpriseMission.com, Richard C. Hoagland. I'm George Norrie, and I'll be back in a moment. Richard, what projects are you working on these days?
Well, we did the expo in Los Angeles, and we recorded something like 10 hours of video. And what I'm trying to do is to put together our own editing suite. I've had such bad luck and bad, experiences with trying to hire editing outside of what we do.
Sure.
Mainly because I think of the controversial nature of what it is that we're putting together. So I'm trying to raise support and raise funds to put together a state-of-the-art editing suite here in New Mexico, which includes computer and tape decks and software and all the accoutrements that one needs to do a first-rate job to put out a professional product. So we can get a lot of the information that we have on film in the archive onto DVDs and get it out to people at a really reasonable price so people can see what this research is all about. Because people these days don't read. I don't know whether you've noticed, George, but they listen to radio, they listen to you, they listen and watch television, or they watch DVDs, the plasma screens. Mm-hmm. The HD format has made viewing television or DVDs at home much more experiential vis-a-vis the theater experience than it ever used to be. And so there's an extraordinary opportunity to put this material out there for an audience that can't see it in the mainstream. I mean, I did something for the National Geographic some months ago, and frankly, it was what you'd expect. It was, a few minutes. It was a lot of other voices. It was not, adequate allowance for rebuttal.
Right.
And so we just need to do this ourselves. So that's a major enterprise project. So if anybody wants to send us the resources to do this, it will redound to your benefit overwhelmingly, because I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of data and images and extraordinary explanations and graphics and animations that I can't get out there because, frankly, the commercial editing situation has become untenable.
I have got some friends in San Antonio who have a mammoth editing facility, and I think they would love to work something out with you. And when I get back to Los Angeles, call me Monday, and I'll get you in touch with them, okay?
All right, that's excellent. That's an excellent option.
I mean, look at that first.
We will definitely look at that first, but if people want to help us with doing it ourselves, which means we don't have to be beholden to anybody, they either, send us a note at EnterpriseMission.com, or they send us a fax at the fax number, which is 505-332-1164, or they can send us, something in the mail at our address, which is, P.O. Box 22008, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87154.
All right, we'll get this done for you. Let's go to our wild card line. Welcome to Coast. You're on the air with us. Hi there.
Is Dave?
Yeah, I don't know who it is, but I know it's you.
Dave is not here right now. He just stepped out.
Go ahead. Where are you calling from?
St. Louis.
Oh, all right.
The homeland, yeah. I had a couple of questions for Richard.
Okay.
One, with all the evidence from the pictures, the recent pictures from Mars, have you changed your opinion on the face on Mars? And the second question was, with all those hundreds of hours of information you've got, will you ever have a TV program, maybe a weekly program, to get some of that information out to us?
Very good. Thank you, Dave. Two good questions, Richard. First of all, your opinion on your Cydonia face on Mars.
Just the opposite. The more data we see, the firmer I'm convinced that there was an ancient civilization that somehow had something to do with us. And our main impediment is the politics of NASA and the politics of ESA and the other space agencies in literally telling us the truth. I've been looking in the last 24 hours, coincidentally, some of it triggered by your own inquiries, George, when you sent me a couple of those images.
Yes.
I've been looking at some of Newcomb's new imaging of Cydonia. Dr. Newcomb is the principal investigator of the Mars Express mission with the German research agency, the German Space Agency.
What a name, too.
Yeah, isn't it? Yes. And he has put out quietly, buried in the ESA archive, some really high-resolution color data of Cydonia. In fact, it's the best damn data, if I can say that on the air tonight,
Well, you can get away with that.
that I have seen.
That's about it.
That I have seen of Cydonia since we've been getting data, and that includes Dr. Malin's super-duper camera on Mars Observer, which, of course, no longer, Mars Surveyor, which doesn't exist anymore. It kind of died a strange death back in November, which almost makes it look as if Newcomb is telling us the truth, and Dr. Malin has been fudging his pictures.
Interesting.
And,
now, what about, go ahead.
Well, as part of this Mars program that you and I discussed by email, I'm going to be assembling some of this and putting it in a format, again, on Enterprise, where people with computers can see this. But again, a lot of your audience, George, does not have computer capability. It's kind of funny in the 21st century, but they simply don't. They do have the capability of playing DVDs. So without going to the huge political problem of a weekly television show or a daily television show, if I can just edit this material with my own voice, my own take on things, and put it out there in reasonably priced DVDs, that is a way to reach a mass audience. I mean, Michael Moore proved that you can say some very important political things without going through the conventional distribution system and structure.
Sure.
So that's the objective in the short term. In the long term, who knows what could happen? Because as part of our LA experience, and I think we touched on this in that touch-and-go dinner, guys, having dinner with George Norrie is like watching an aircraft being launched off the JF Kennedy. He comes in for a landing, the arrest ropes stop the plane, he leaps out, gulps down his foods, dashes back to the plane, and is shot off the carrier into the studio to do the program, and you basically say hi and bye.
And you can't find me after I leave.
That was the quickest dinner you and I have ever had the other night.
I know.
And I must say, Tom, it was nice having Tom there.
Yeah.
But we, as part of that experience, as I briefly got a chance to say to you in 5 words, we apparently have some interest now back on the Hollywood movie front in the film script that I and Paul Davids wrote so many years ago, vis-a-vis Cydonia and our experience and the research and the implications and all that. And we're literally waiting for one key executive producer to read the script. Everybody else has read the script and loves it. But, of course, in Hollywood, you're always waiting for that one guy. So we're waiting for that one guy. And if that comes to pass, we may actually be at the beginnings of a real deal finally after only 10 years.
That's exciting. At least you don't give up. West of the Rockies, you're on with Richard C. Hoagland on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Thank you. Thank you. Ken from Salt Lake City.
Hi, Ken.
A comment. I'd first like to hear a conversation between Einstein and your guest there. That would be fun with one of those boxes.
I was just going to say, we're going to have to use Frank's box.
I would love it.
That would be a great conversation in the show. Question, though, is I used to play a lot in the river when I was growing up, and if you put a rock in the middle of a river, you have a hole behind that rock as the river's flowing downstream. Everything will come around that rock and over the top of it, and then it creates what they call a hole, and the water will go out further away from the rock. If you're familiar with that concept.
Oh yeah, I used to do that myself. We had a river, we had a creek actually, where there was a railroad trestle that used to cross it. We would go up on the trestle and jump into the swimming hole.
Right.
When my mother found out about that, she grounded me for like a month.
Well, yeah, so same kind of mom. Question, though, is in space, if you believe in the Big Bang, I'm just curious if the Big Bang is flowing outward and you had a piece of mass out there that you couldn't see, over that piece of mass, would that create a black hole, like something going over the mass and then everything coming back around and surrounding it, creating a black hole? Is that a possibility?
Well, you're basically talking about a vortex situation, and the problem with your metaphor is that in the classic Big Bang, it isn't material blasting into space past other material. It's space itself which is expanding. So the river is expanding at exactly the same rate as the current is flowing, to keep with your metaphor. So there would be no pockets of decreased density and no increased density, and ergo no black holes. But it was a very nice idea.
First-time caller line, you're up with Richard C. Hoagland. Hi there.
Hi, George. This is Don in Tremont, Utah.
Hi, Don.
I'd like to say hi to my neighbor down there in Salt Lake City. His idea of a hole behind a rock in a riverbed is a little offline. It's more the idea that you'd have in a sailboat with a negative pressure area from one sail to another. Anyway, to the point, we were talking earlier about the possibility of life in space with Mr. Hoagland, and I keep coming back to the same thought on it. If we can have life in the Arctic in bacterial form, why can't we have life on Io under the seas, the same type, bacterial? It's hard for me to believe that we couldn't.
Well, Don, I agree, and Richard, I'm sure you do too.
Back when I wrote the original piece, which was a very careful scientific investigatory piece with references and all that, I proposed that the brownish stuff along the cracks on the surface of Europa is actually evidence of microbes that have been erupted up through cracks in the ice from the ocean underneath, kind of splayed out on the icy surface, and then irradiated by the radiation storms from Jupiter into discontinuous atoms and brown gunk. And what we're seeing is the residuum of formerly organic microbial life in a desiccated state. Now, fast forward the film. A few years ago, some biologist somewhere came up with the same idea. Of course, it didn't reference me, and proposed it in a major scientific piece. Well, one of the observations that the New Horizons spacecraft was going to conduct as it flew by Europa a couple days ago and stored the images and the data in the spacecraft for replay in the next several weeks is exactly that kind of a study, to see if the spectral signature of those brownish streaks and spots on the surface could in fact be, in essence, the radiation-spattered bodies of millions of microbes erupted up from the oceans underneath the ice. So it's an excellent question, and maybe if NASA's honest, they'll let us know if they get a positive result.
Richard, I wish we could take more phone calls with you. We're out of time for them. I'll sit down and we'll just chat a little bit as we get up to the top of the hour. But I've got to tell you, this is a simple delight. And a lot of people, while I was signing the book or just pictures for a lot of people here in Houston, asked about you specifically.
Aww.
And it was kind of neat.
About Robin?
Well, no, they asked about you.
Because Robin also saw you briefly in L.A. at our dinner. And,
yeah, I know. Don't let her feel left out. But, I mean, you've got a lot of fans here in Houston, Texas. I wanted you to know that.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I really appreciate our Coast family. And I don't say it enough, but, you know, Art started and you have continued a unique, extraordinary, positive experiment in broadcasting in this nation. And in these critical times, I mean, you allude to the idea that we have tough times coming, and I would tend to agree with you in principle, but I think this audience and the mindset that all of us together have created, which is we can overcome problems if we focus consciously. I mean, I'm sitting here tonight talking to you because of all this audience input and basically love when I had my extraordinarily deep problem with a heart attack. That kind of coherence on the part of this audience makes me really warm to every one of the people who's listening to us. And so that feeling definitely, George, is mutual.
Very good. Richard, thanks. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Richard C. Hoagland, EnterpriseMission.com. When I come back, we will have almost Full Moon Friday open lines, plus a special hotline. It's the Grim Reaper hotline. Somebody in Houston saw the Grim Reaper, gave me a great idea. So, you know, in modern-day European-based folklore, death is known as the Grim Reaper, depicted, well, wearing that dark hooded cloak and wielding that sickle-looking thing. The garb of death of the black mourning robe, which were the first references, are found in the early 15th century. I'm going to open up a special hotline. We've got open lines for you tonight, sort of full moon open lines, because the full moon is on Saturday. Here's the special topic line, the Grim Reaper hotline. How many of you have seen the Grim Reaper, that guy hanging around on the side of a road, hitchhiking, that looks just like him? 818-817-0021. That's that number for the rest of our open line Grim Reaper hotline calls. 818-817-0021. I'll be back in a moment. Open lines continue on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Open Lines. I'm George Norrie here in Houston, Texas. And let's go to the phones. Let's pick it up by going to, let's go to the Grim Reaper line. You're on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hello, hi. My name is Abby, and I'm calling from New Hampshire.
Hi,
Abby. Hi, I have a Grim Reaper story.
Okay.
Okay, I was living in this old building once. It was like really creepy old building. And I work at night, and I woke up early, and it was in summer, so I had the front door open, and it was just the porch that was closed up. But when I got out, I noticed my porch door was open. I was like scared because I thought somebody let my dog out. And I turned around, and I saw this like shape sitting on the couch. You know, it was like all black. I was like, I thought it was some neighbor or somebody who was just being funny or something. You know, let my dog out and sat there trying to play Grim Reaper. So I went over it and tried to grab the thing off of it. And my hand just went through it. It just went into, like, outer space or something. It was like, I thought I was going to pull back a stump. It was so scary.
Was he after you?
I asked him that, and he says, well, I got a proposition for you. He says, I know how you can get $200. I'm like saying, well, this is coming from the Grim Reaper. So, like, well, if somebody has to die for me to get $200, you know, I don't want to hear about it, you know.
No, wait a minute. Now, you're negotiating with the Grim Reaper, and he wants $200 from you?
No, he said to me, I know how you can get $200.
How you can get it?
How I can get $200.
All right, so the Grim Reaper, who normally wants to take you away to the bowels of hell, wants you to get $200. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm like, okay, this is completely creepy. He's the Grim Reaper. He's offering me $200. So I said, well, no, thank you, sir. You know, it's like, you know, I found out, like, he wasn't, this is after I found out he wasn't, like, some neighbor goofing around on me, you know. So I said, no, thank you, sir. You know, if you're offering me $200, it must be somebody's going to die, and I don't want any part of it. So the next day, I didn't have a phone at this time, okay?
Right.
This was days before cell phones. So the next day, I went over to my mother's house, and she was telling me that she just won $200 in the lottery, and that she had come down with something awful, and you know, she was waiting for the reports from the doctor. And I was like,
no!
Whoa, okay. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I made the right decision.
Yeah, you did, but your poor mom. Tell me she was okay after that.
No, she was. Well, she did have to take a bunch of medication, and she did eventually pass on, but it was like about 7 or 8 years later.
It's a long time. So why did you even talk to the Grim Reaper? I mean, you acted as if you knew him.
Oh, no, because I was mad at him. I was just mad because I got out to the porch and the door was open. Because I usually leave it's hot night. I leave the door to the apartment open, but the porch door is locked. But it's not that easy to unlock if you stick your finger through and unhook the thing. And I was afraid that somebody let my dog out.
So how did he leave? How did he leave your house after you told him, I'm not going to cut this deal with you?
Okay, I think he just, like, blinked out or something. It was just, like, suddenly he was there.
And suddenly he was not. Well, thanks, just like you popped out. Wildcard Line, you're on the air with us on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hello, George Norrie?
Yes, sir.
It's UFO Phil.
Phil, you sound like you're talking to me from a tin can.
Oh, I'm having trouble with my communication system because of all the lunar flares tonight.
Are you okay?
I'm fine, actually. Everything's really great. I'm really excited tonight. I've got some new scientific developments up here on Mount Spokane.
What's going on up there?
Can you keep a secret?
I sure can, Phil.
Well, you know, I'm a bit of a scientist. I have a degree and everything, and so I've developed a new way to finally that we can be able to tell if our neighbors are aliens or not by just performing a simple scientific test.
And what kind of a test is this, Phil?
Can you keep a secret?
Mm-hmm.
It's a series of 5 multiple-choice questions. Now, you have to get close to the person that you suspect might be an alien so that you can ask them these 5 questions.
You've got to give us these questions.
Okay, all right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Question number 1.
Uh-huh.
Are you an alien?
All right, and they'll say yes or no.
Right. Question number 2.
Uh-huh.
Are you from a planet other than Earth?
Okay.
Question number 3. Do you eat people?
Ooh.
And if so, who? Because it might make a difference. You never know.
Some aliens won't admit that, but go
right?
ahead.
Okay, but see, this is the test. And then number 4. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to attack Earth? And question number 5. Now, you have to be really close to them. It's kind of dangerous. I don't recommend everyone do this, but if you can get close to them, you ask them these questions. Question number 5. Do you believe in Tom Cruise? Okay.
And how do you tabulate this, Phil?
Well, that's a secret that only I know the answer to. So what people would have to do is if they suspect someone's an alien, ask them the questions, jot down the answers that they get, and then they would have to forward those to me along with preferably a skin or blood sample, and then I'll be able to tell them yes or no if they are an alien.
And they can, of course, get to you through...
They can go to ufophil.com, George.
You got it. All right, Phil, thanks.
All right, thanks for calling.
I just like the way that you just continue to protect society from these very strange things. Wildcard Line, welcome to the show. You're on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm calling from Columbus, Ohio.
Hi, Linda.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
I was calling because several weeks ago, it was on a Wednesday evening, and I was sitting here watching TV and playing on the computer about 8:30 in the evening, and there was just a loud explosion. It was a big boom. It felt like a 100-pound boulder had hit the roof of my home. The place shook. And the previous day, we had a snowstorm here in Ohio, and we got quite a few inches of snow, then ice, and then snow on top of that. The next day, that Thursday morning, I heard a boom again, and it wasn't quite as loud, but that evening on the news, the newscaster was reporting that they had received many calls as well as the police and radio stations, and people were wondering if it was a sonic boom. And the TV station had done some investigating, and they said that it wasn't, and some people thought maybe it was a UFO, but their report was that it was ice breaking.
What I think it might have been, Linda, and you are not alone with this because I got a lot of calls during that period. You can have thunderstorms in the wintertime. And they are way up there in the clouds.
Okay.
And when they rumble, it's a vibration. And I think in this particular case, that is probably what you heard.
Okay.
Can you accept that?
Well, I guess I have no idea what it could have been. It was really a scary. And then you know what the weird thing that happened after that?
What's that?
Is that things started hitting the house all night long. And I have a 28-year-old niece that lives here.
Well, now we're dealing with something. It could have been hail, right? Or huge hailstones?
No, but we weren't having a hailstorm. And if you looked out, you didn't see anything, but things started hitting the house. Now, it was different than when the ice would crack off the roof and just slide down. This was like someone was throwing snowballs or throwing something right at the windows and just the building itself. So when I went back to work, I mentioned it to some people. Several heard the boom, but everyone I mentioned it to seemed to experience things hitting their house. It went on for like 24 hours. But they, and they were like, I looked out and there was nothing there, and kids were afraid, and it was just a really weird experience.
Did you hear things on your roof as if somebody might be up there?
No. I can honestly say I did not hear that.
Okay, because I've gotten some calls about that. Strange, though, I got to tell you. West of the Rockies, welcome to Coast. You're on the air. Hi there.
Hi, is this me?
It sure is. Me?
Hi. My name is Dory. I said that I was west of the Rockies, but that was the number on the XM screen that I called.
Yeah, they have just for some reason they only have that number, so that's okay.
Actually, I'm in Weatherford, Texas, at the truck stop. I pulled over here in the truck stop to give you a call. First-time caller. This happened about 3 or 4 years ago. My husband and I drive trucks cross-country, and we had a load of dog food that would pick up. We was taking it to Oklahoma City, and we just left Kansas City, Kansas on I-35, going into Oklahoma. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. We were grossing out about 79,000 pounds, and out of nowhere, this huge animal, it looked like a big wolf, went in front of me. I was driving a Freightliner Columbia, and the bumper is plastic on that particular truck. I hit it because I had no time to react.
Yeah.
I hit it, and it was just like I was going over speed bumps, and I got it with one entire side of my tandem. And so just a few miles up the road was a little Texaco truck stop. I pulled in, and everybody was looking at me, and I got out, and I looked. The whole bumper was smashed in.
Oh, my.
Paint was missing. This truck was white. There was no blood on it anywhere. There was another truck just behind me came in. His truck was slightly damaged, and he looked at my bumper, and I looked at his, and I said, "What did you hit?" And he says, "Well, I was just behind you, and this huge animal," he's a big, huge dog, is what he said, "was standing up in the middle of the road, shaking itself when I hit it." And it was so weird, and I can't figure out what it was.
And this one came in on what, all fours?
Yeah, it was walking across like a wolf. It looked like a wolf.
Was it moving fast or slowly?
It was moving slow. It was just like it was casually strolling across the road.
Could it have been a bear? You know the way a bear kind of rumbles along.
No, it was not a bear. It was in the dog species. It had that wiry hair and everything. And when we got back to the terminal, after we delivered our load, the mechanics looked at it, and they pulled hair from under the truck, but there was not one drop of blood.
Do you
anywhere.
Still have, or can you still get these hair samples?
Oh, no, I doubt it. I doubt if I could, because this was several years ago.
Get them analyzed and try to figure out just what kind of a creature this thing was.
I don't know what it was, but it was really bizarre.
If the guy behind you hit it too, does that mean the thing never died?
Apparently not, because he said he was behind me, and whenever he came up on it, it was standing. It had stood up and was shaking. Like a dog shakes whenever.
Like it jumps into a pool or something, or a pond.
Yeah, it just shaking. He said it was standing up and it was shaking, like it was shaking itself, and he hit it. And we looked all over this truck. Like I said, it was white. The truck was white, and you'd think there would be blood somewhere.
No, that's a weird story, but I wish you could have gotten some of the hair. We could have had that screened for you and checked. Thanks for the call. Let's go to our Grim Reaper line. You're on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi, George. This is Jeff calling from Nashville.
Jeff, welcome to the program.
Hey, I've actually gone face-to-face with the Reaper.
Whereabouts? How did it happen?
Well, actually, it happened in a small town called Clarksville, Tennessee, near where Fort Campbell is. And I was over at my girlfriend's house at the time, and I was sitting in a chair. I wasn't feeling too well that day. I was kind of feeling somewhat sick, just out of the blue. And I just had sat down in this kind of big wingback chair, and I just kind of went into a kind of a darker trance, a little trance-like state where she didn't really know what was going on, but she was sitting there by my side, holding my hand, next to me on her knees, and I was kind of just out of it. Next thing I know, I'm feeling two hands pressing on each one of my shoulders. And I look up, and I could see the reflection inside of the television, inside of the television set that was turned off.
You did want to turn around, did you?
Well, I could see everything that was happening in the reflection of the set. But I saw these huge 2 figures on each side, one on each side, holding my chest or holding my shoulders down, kind of keeping me there. And then I felt this cold chill, just as if like the Arctic is actually erupting out of my back.
God, what did they want with you? Did they want you?
I'm not. Well, I think so, but I think they were just minis for the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper came in later. He actually walked through the door. The door was locked. The door was shut. He walked through the door and stood, and they had brought me up, and he stood toe to toe. And I was, less than 6 inches away from this like the eternal black face.
Did he point at you?
He didn't point at me. He didn't do anything. He just stood there with his sickle, and the 2 guys and his 2 minions were standing next to me. And I'm like, I'm not afraid of you.
Well, I'm going to tell you though, you better be careful, because that's not a good sign. You don't want that, especially if he's there and you see him. No. Wild card line, your turn. You're on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hey, how you doing? This is Marco from San Francisco.
Hey, Marco. Thanks for calling.
Hey, listen, I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me when I was 16 years old.
All right.
I had an encounter with this thing, this like a, I know it sounds funny, but it's like a monster. I grew up in Daly City, just a suburb of San Francisco.
Sure.
And in the summer, I was getting ready for football, so I'd get up early to do my Rocky run. I started at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd run down around Lake Merced, and I'd head out to the beach. Well, going southbound from San Francisco, you start cutting up this canyon that goes up to Daly City. So I'm heading up the canyon, and I started hearing these horrible sounds, like an animal, drinking, but like a monster or something, right? So I kind of stopped, and I was like, what is that, So I kept running, and I ran over this little hill, and as soon as I came over the hill, I saw this thing hunched over, drinking out of a sewer, right? And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. I was so scared because I was like about 10 feet away from it, and I look over and I see its hands, and they were totally like not human. They were like these like really long, creepy hands with like sores on them and these big like claw-looking fingers. And I just went, oh my God, and this thing looked over at me. It was wearing like a robe with like, it was a hood on.
That was the
right?
Grim Reaper.
No, I don't think it was the Green Reaper, but I got to tell you something. When this thing looked over at me, it growled at me. It got up right away, and its face was so scary that, I mean, like, my daughter and stuff was asking me, well, what did it look like? And I said, well, you know what? Picture something as hideous as like The Exorcist or like that thing from The Ring. And so anyway, this thing just took off after me, and I started booking. I was running back towards the beach, but you can't go down that way because you got to crawl up some rocks first.
How did you get away?
Well, I started running up the cliffs. It's all cliffs around there except for that one canyon. The only road is that one little trail. So I start running up the sides of the hill, but it's all like sand.
Well, I got to tell you, you made it. We'll be back. Well, time to say hello and thank you to all of you. First of all, those of you in Houston, thanks for participating in our event today. I appreciate you coming by. Those of you listening on your favorite radio stations across North America, Streamlink members, hello to you, Coast Riders, XM Satellite, and then the various chat rooms all over the place. NighthawkZone.com, folks, the Imaginative Worlds, Into Infinity, Frog Forum, National Radio Club, Sorcery IRC, also some MySpace groups picking up with the Coast to Coast. I am not on MySpace, by the way. There are imposters there, but there are some pretty neat Coast to Coast groups that are popping up on MySpace as well. We'll be back in a moment. Open lines continue on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Let's pick it up by going to our first-time caller line. Good morning. How are you?
Hello?
Yes, it's your turn.
Oh, it's me. Okay, how you doing?
Caught you napping, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Well, you've been holding so long, I can understand that.
I have a little story to say. I don't know if it was the Grim Reaper. This would happen I'm going to say 6 months ago.
Okay.
It was at 10:27 in the morning, and I do have a skylight in my bedroom, so all the light was coming through. I woke up. I saw what looked like if you were to put like a black spandex outfit on your whole body from your head all the way down.
Do you really want me to do that?
No. But that's what I saw. It was a male figure, and it was totally black with no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just totally black, just like crawling up and looking at me, okay? And I woke up, I blinked my eyes twice. Now I was getting kind of defensive. I was just waking up. It happened that quick, like within like a tenth of a second. And I was like, what's going on? And then it was gone, okay? And then 2 months later, in my room, during, I'm going to say between 3:30 and 4 o'clock or 4:30 a.m., something grabbed me from behind on the back of my shoulders and pulled me off of my bed. I spun around. I saw the same being. And I was like, what's going on? Very aggressive, like, what are you doing in here? I didn't know who it was or what was going on. And it was gone again. Now, I've had, like, a lot of bad luck in this house. Things are not happening right. And what I'm saying, all I want to understand or know from the other callers that are coming through with their information is, what actually is a Grim Reaper? Do we have our own personal demons? Do we make them?
Well, first of all, the Grim Reaper, this doesn't sound like that's who that was. I mean, to me, the Grim Reaper is like Dr. Death. I mean, this is this entity that is dressed up in black, kind of bony. Sometimes you don't even see the face, and it's got this long robe on it. It's really scary. This sounds like some demonic entity was attacking you.
It was very scary. And I understand that, maybe the Reaper comes to you into whatever you might want to see him as in different forms or shapes. And I'm just, questionable as to what is going on, why was he doing what he did, and how could he actually touch me? I understand about phenomena and ghosts, demonic possession, but none of this has taken place in my home. But it was actually able to grab me and touch me, and that's what really upset me.
I got to tell you, people have been assaulted by these beings. It's bizarre. It doesn't make any sense, but it has happened in the past. I mean, some people even feel violated. That's how bad it is.
Is it a UFO? Is it a Grim Reaper, a demon? I mean, I'm just questionable to...
Nobody knows exactly what they are. And who knows? You might even conjure them up somehow with this incredible subconscious mind that we all have. It could be a lot of things. It could be dimensional. You just have to monitor it and see if it continues to happen.
I've been monitoring it, and just a lot of bad luck has happened in this house. Like a black shadow has taken over. And
maybe it's time to get out of the house?
Should I actually have to leave my home and move? I've been here for like 11 years, and we love it here.
Do you own the house or you rent it?
We're renting.
Well, I got to tell you.
And I have a wolf dog, and he's very possessive now. And since I've gotten him, it hasn't happened anymore.
You got to be kidding me.
Oh, no, I'm serious. It has not happened because I'm like his mother. He will not leave my side. And once you get an animal in the house, and I'm going to say this out of past experience, I've been in a lot of situations to where you live in a house alone, shit happens. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that over here.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that. Wildcard line, welcome to Coast. You are on the air with us. Welcome to the program. Hi there.
Hi, is this me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. This is Ben from Dupo, Illinois.
Hey.
Let me tell you about what happens every time I walk past the mirror.
Okay.
Now, I had read on the internet, there's this website called Lulinks.com that kind of compiles various paranormal tales and such. And they say on there that if you walk past the mirror and you look at it out of the corner of your eye, you'll notice things about it, that it's not actually you. Mirrors act as gates to another realm, basically. And I was very skeptical about this. I didn't believe it. that I'd walk past my mirror and look at myself out of the corner of my eye, and I notice things like I'd move, and I wasn't actually moving. I wasn't. It was this thing in the mirror. And
mirrors are very, very creepy. They are, I think, portals to the other side.
Yes.
There are mirror tests that you can use, that you can do, if you want to reach the other side.
Now,
you got to be careful, though.
Now, I can't even look at my reflection. I even sold all of my silverware because this has me so utterly confused. And
you're kidding. Everything that reflects your face,
I don't even have any.
Rid of everything?
I've gotten rid of all my DVDs, even. I've replaced them all with VHS tapes because I can't take that chance that something will happen to me one night.
My God.
This has me scared. I'm confused.
How do you you've taken out all the mirrors in your house?
Every single mirror.
How do you comb your hair and stuff like that?
I just
try
to do my best. I don't shave myself. I've actually grown out my beard.
Just because of this. You have a beard because you're afraid to shave because you can't look at your reflection in a mirror.
Yes, exactly.
My God.
I don't own a television. I don't even own cologne bottles anymore. No glass, no mirror, nothing.
And what do your friends tell you about this?
They think that I'm crazy, and I'm starting to believe them because this isn't the only thing that's happened to me with mirrors. I've watched myself. One time I was actually shaving one time, and the hand started to twitch, and it kind of jerked towards me with the razor. And so I don't know what to do.
Man, do you think you're crazy?
I certainly hope not. I haven't went to a psychologist. I might have to do that.
So, let's say you're walking outside, or you go to a store.
I try to avoid any public places with a lot of mirrors
and things like that.
Yes.
I mean, do you break out in a cold sweat? What happens to you?
It just a wave of heat comes over me. It's not cold, it's hot, and I always feel that there's something on the other side of a mirror that we don't know in everyday life. That there's this thing watching us that we can't comprehend.
Look, I am not a doctor, and I don't know what to tell you about this, but I've never heard of this before, where somebody gets rid of every ounce of reflection in their house. I don't know if you need to get some serious help or what the heck is going on with you. I've always said, first of all, start with a medical condition and check that out. So maybe you should do that first, but that is absolutely bizarre. Let's go to the Grim Reaper line. You're on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi, George. This is Sophia from Macomb County, Michigan.
Hi, Sophia. How are you?
I am doing great. Thanks.
That was my grandmother's name, by the way.
Oh, great.
Yep.
I just wanted to say really, really fast, I'm an established angel medium here in Macomb County. And
what's an angel medium?
I channel the archangels, spirit guides, ascended masters, all those fun people.
Oh, okay.
I don't do dead people, though. People come to me expecting me to be John Edward, and I say, no, I do not do dead people.
Just the angels.
Just the angels, of which, in talking about the Grim Reaper, that's actually the Archangel Azrael. And I had an experience with him actually not too long ago. Usually when I have a client who mentions an angel to me that I've not yet met personally, the angel will make himself or herself known to me, later down the road. And that happened to me about a month ago with Azrael. A client asked me, have you ever met the angel of death? And I said, no, and I don't want to.
Does that mean you're going to pass on if you see it?
No, I don't believe so, because my experience when he revealed himself to me, actually, it was very gentle, very loving. Yes, he does wear the black robe. If you could imagine, he almost has the complexion of chalkboards when they're wet and shiny. Almost slate gray complexion with very translucent gray eyes. And he put his hand on my shoulder, and I flipped out. But he said, Sophia, you have no reason to ever fear me. And I said, okay, cool. Now that that's established.
If you can trust him.
Well, and you know what? I do, because I trust all of the other archangels, and he is just a part of the archangels, along with Michael, Gabriel. He has a job to do.
Is he the one
to lead
who
us
wears?
to the other side.
Does he wear this dark robe?
Yes, he does. And even though he wears this dark robe, he's not the only angel that wears archangel.
No, that's true. Does he have the bony long fingers? Is that he the one who, and the one that points at you?
I didn't see bony long fingers. The fingers I saw were, looked very, human-like. Of course, the angels take on guises that we're most comfortable with. I was comfortable with that, so that's how he appeared to me. But
I wonder if the devil takes on the bony finger persona.
I wouldn't doubt it. I think a lot of people who are probably going to call in tonight and who have already called in are either running into not so much the Grim Reaper or the angel of death as we know it, but are running into either shadow persons or running into, demons, not so much as demons from hell, but demons that they're manifesting from within themselves.
Why do you think so many people are reporting seeing these entities or these creatures now?
Because we're living in a society of fear, and fear manifests fear, and people are afraid everywhere we go. That's one reason when I interact with my clients, I stay away from the news. I stay away from, like headline news and things like that, because I don't want it to pollute any messages that may come down the channel from the angels. And I always tell my clients, stay away from negativity. But everyone's afraid of, we're afraid of everything. We're a fear-based society, and I think that's the reason for it.
Do people all have guardian angels?
Absolutely. Every single person has a guardian angel. But the angels are interesting because they switch hit. The angel that you have today is here to help you get through this particular phase of your life. That could change next year. You can get another archangel that will take you through another phase of your life. I've worked with Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, who incidentally, when I'm dealing with people who are about to pass on, it's not Azrael or the angel of death I usually see. It's usually Raphael who's standing there.
All right. What about that? Let me give you a story, and you tell me, because you're an angel medium, what this is. I get a call from a person who's a truck driver about a year ago, and he's driving at night. He's by himself, windy road. He's tired. He starts falling asleep. He's going over the embankment. He's ready to go. I mean, he's history. All of a sudden, a hand grabs the steering wheel, right, and turns it and pulls him back on the road, reacting before he does. There's nobody else in the cab. It's just him. He's convinced it's his guardian angel. Was it?
And, well, it could very well be his guardian angel.
I mean, if it wasn't, who would have done that? Maybe his dead grandfather or somebody like that? I mean, would they step in and try to save him?
It's possible, but I wouldn't say at this point. Well, for one thing, I would really have to talk to the person individually to figure it out. But when it comes to people like, relatives who have passed on, usually our relatives who have passed on become what we call spirit guides. But they have to be trained in areas like that once they've passed on. The archangel, when you were telling me the story, immediately I thought of Archangel Michael, because Michael works with automobiles. I call him the angelic mechanic.
I was going to say.
So
I wonder if he can increase my gas mileage to about 600 miles a gallon. I bet an angel could do that. Well, I tell you what we're going to do from here on in. When you call, you give your name to us as the angel lady, so I'll know who it is, okay?
That's how I go by here in Macomb, and that's how people know me.
That's what you will do on this program from here on in. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Next up, let us go to our wild card line. You are on Coast to Coast. Good morning to you.
Hey, George. This is David in El Paso, Texas.
Hi, David. What's going on in El Paso?
Oh, well, I just wanted to tell you about this story that was in the paper today. I was actually surprised to see it. It says, riverbed circles spawn UFO speculation. Now, they found these circles in the dry riverbed by the Rio Grande, and they were a 35-foot wide series of circles. The largest circle contained 3 other circles, each consisting of 8-inch deep trenches.
Wow.
And and supposedly this guy says here, he's quoted that a friend of a friend was claiming to be walking by this area on Tuesday night and saw a mysterious light, and he saw it land and take off right away. And then so this guy, he went to work, and he was telling everybody that he saw something land, and everyone was like, yeah, whatever. And so they went to the place during their lunch break to settle the argument, and then they found the circles. And then so I was just really surprised to actually see, because then it goes on to talk about how the Southwest is no stranger to strange lights, and they talk about Roswell. And then further back in the paper, they talk about the grays. They talk about different like species, I guess you would call it. They
What
talk
a
about
great
the
story.
grays.
I got to get this story from you, David.
Yeah, they have it on. They say here at ElPasoTimes.com that there's a video of the story.
We'll track that down. And
but I was really surprised.
I mean, it was like they landed there?
Yeah, the guy just says that he's seen a light land and take off right away. And there's these circles, and like the picture, I was surprised. And this is on the front page of the local section. It's big, they put a big picture. And so it shows the circles. They're really strange looking. I haven't seen them in person, but just the picture looks strange. But what surprised me the most is that in the back, on the fourth page in, they talk about different species of aliens. They give a description of the grays, the reptilians, the blondes, and one more. But I was really surprised to see this kind of information actually.
There's also the praying. There's also the praying mantis looking type. They look almost like insects. So you got to do that. Okay, Dave, thanks. And email me if you can at george@coasttocoastam.com. Email me the link to that. I'd love to see that. Well, we're going to just chat you right up to the top of the hour, and then we've got another hour to go for you of open lines. And the last hour, a little treat for you, an interview with the attorney from John Teeter, time traveler, wherever he may be. A lot of people asked some time-traveling questions in our Houston conference tonight, and fascinating subject matter. And as, of course, I have always believed, all of us have the ability to travel in time without a time machine. You can do it in your mind. You can be that intuitive, and you can just let it go. So we'll be back in just a moment on Coast to Coast. Don't forget Ian Punnett, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., most stations on Saturday, and then we've got Art Bell Saturday and Sunday. Next week, Art is going to be getting a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Radio and Records Group. It's a huge trade group, and I've got the honor of introducing him at this conference on Saturday. I will do the program March 11th, Sunday, for Art, and we will also run an excerpt of that event in Art's speech. I'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And at the bottom of our hot stories, Sean has the El Paso story of the sand circles, and too good to be true, right? Because they say a human, not an ET, takes credit for the sand circles. Turns out to be all the work of a local artist named Michael Alford. He's pretty darn good, I'll tell you that. And he said, art is a mystery, but this mystery is man-made, not alien-made. Dozens of people reported seeing the circles there, and there are some pictures on the coasttocoastam.com website on the last hot story way down there at the bottom. Back in a moment. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Let us go west of the Rockies. You are on the program. Good morning to you. Hello.
Hi, George.
Yes, sir. Hi.
Hey, how's it going? This is Justin in Loveland, Colorado. We're
Yes,
actually
sir.
to the Rockies. Barely. Just barely.
Okay. Just squeezed over.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really have a story for you. It was more of a question. Me and my cronies are going to Vegas here this upcoming weekend for my birthday, and we were thinking about making the trek up to Rachel on Area 51, and we were thinking if maybe you had some pointers or advice or what to do or what not to do.
Yeah, be careful.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they will come and get you if you get too close. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see anything. You might, if you're going to be out in that area, it's kind of neat to be out there at night, but you don't know where you're going.
Right.
And I'd just be very careful. You know, Art had a couple of years ago an incredible story of a fella who was flying his small plane Area 51, and he disappeared, and who knows what happened to him.
I remember hearing that actually on the radio. It was quite a long time ago. If I remember right. The guy actually had a recording from inside of his plane, I think.
No, he was live.
Yeah. I mean, he was live, but he was in his plane.
Yeah.
On the phone, man, that'd be great. You should play that again sometime. That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll do that one day.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I listen to the show quite often.
So enjoy Vegas. Happy birthday. Be very careful if you're going out to Area 51.
Oh, we're gonna.
Yeah, those guys mean business out there.
Yeah, we don't want to get shot or anything like that.
No, you don't want that.
We don't need none of that. If something happens, if I get wounded, I'll give you a ring or something.
You got it.
All righty, man.
All right, thanks. Appreciate you being part of the program. Next up, let's go to our wild card line. You are on Coast to Coast. Hello there.
Hello, George.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? This is Bob in Seattle.
Hello, Bob.
ACD cameras, like the kind of chips you have in any camera you'd buy over the counter at Costco. And it's sending back these astonishing, incredible panoramas. The thing I want everyone to look for when they get a chance to see the pictures, and I believe there are photos of the North Pole of Saturn, look for this incredible hexagonal geometric thing around the North Pole with straight edges.
What's the thing, Richard?
Well, the thing is a cloud formation which is twirling backwards at something like 300 miles per hour with the planet rotating forwards at, 1,400. And it was spotted by the Voyager missions way back in the 80s. But they didn't go over the poles, so they had to put together this view from oblique shots rectified in the computer. This is now a stunning real polar view with the spacecraft Cassini, tweaked up into this high polar orbit by going past Titan several times. And they have this stunning view looking down on the entire Saturn system. And you can see this incredible hexagonal feature around the pole, symmetrical, which is an incredible hyperdimensional signature of the physics that we've just been describing all across the solar system, exemplifying itself in the Saturn system. I mean, George, that the four big outer planets, forgetting Pluto and that whole controversy for a second, the four big outer planets are all emitting more energy than they are getting from the sun.
Isn't that bizarre?
Unless you understand hyperdimensional physics, in which case the answer, where's that energy coming from, is very obvious. It's coming into this dimension from another dimension. Leaping back to your guest last night, Chris Moon, and his electronic genius Frank's super box, which is pulling information, actual voices, coherent, intelligent transmissions from some other dimension, George. It's all part of a grand unified theory of everything. And as we're racing toward this nodal point of 2012, have you just looked around at just CNN? Just watch CNN for a few days and watch how everything is happening at an incredibly accelerated rate. The good guys are getting better, as I say, and the bad guys are getting worse. And problems that used to fester for years or sometimes a decade are being now resolved and confronted, and the bad guys are separated from the good guys within a matter of weeks or even days. For instance, look.
From the Bayou City, Houston, Texas. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie, and this is Coast to Coast AM, originating from the studios tonight of KTRH News Radio 740. What a time we have had in Houston. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. But later tonight, almost Full Moon Friday, open lines. I say that because it's officially full moons tomorrow, full moon, but we're going to call it tonight. And Tommy and I came up to Houston for a major event. We had just a wonderful time, 1,300 people here, and the people in Houston are absolutely gracious, as they are all around the United States. And, of course, it was a 3-hour flight from Los Angeles to Houston. So Tom and I, producer Tom, brought our portable DVD players, and, of course, I watched Charlton Heston's cartoon. That'll tell you where I come from, a little history there for me. Tommy took Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That'll tell you where his head is directed. Here's some of the news of the day, then we'll get into our special guest this hour. Common children's cold and cough medicines are coming under scrutiny from federal drug regulators who say the remedies and their recommended doses have not been studied enough in children. This is a big story. Dr. Charles Ganley, who is a top Food and Drug Administration official, says the agency was revisiting the risks and benefits of the use of these drugs in children, especially those younger than 2 years old. Most over-the-counter cold and cough medicines have been insufficiently tested in children, they say. So if your little child has a cold and the doctor recommends this, talk to him about the study and the story you just heard. A deadly winter storm just walloped parts of the plains and Midwest, keeping highways and schools closed, knocking out power and piling up huge snowdrifts on Friday. At least 6 storm-related deaths have been reported in the region since the snowfall began on Wednesday. Blizzard conditions shut down roads in Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, leaving some areas with well over a foot of snow by Friday morning. The storm was part of a larger line of thunderstorms and snowstorms that stretched from Minnesota to the Gulf. Tornadoes killed 20 people in Missouri, Georgia, Alabama, including 8 students in an Alabama high school. The most comprehensive weather study ever has confirmed what we all know, that the weather really is worse on the weekends. I don't know why, but meteorologists evaluated 6.3 million pieces of climate data from all across Europe between 1990 and 2005. Their conclusion: on weekends, the weather is worse than on weekdays. They found that Wednesdays have the highest average temperatures, Saturdays are the lowest, Monday was the driest day, and Saturday definitely the wettest. Simultaneous warming on Earth and Mars suggests that our planet's recent climate changes have a natural and not a human-induced cause, according to a Russian scientist theory. In 2005, data from NASA's Mars Global Surveyor and Odyssey missions revealed that the carbon dioxide ice caps near Mars' South Pole have been diminishing for 3 summers in a row. The Russian scientist says, hey, the Mars data is evidence that the current global warming on Earth is being caused by changes with the sun. The International Cassini spacecraft has beamed back to Earth never-before-seen angles of Saturn from high above and below its majestic rings. If you have a computer, go to the coasttocoastam.com website, look under the feature story, and look at the dazzling new photographs of Saturn. And the moon will turn shades of amber and crimson Saturday night as it passes behind the Earth's shadow in the first total lunar eclipse in 3 years. The eclipse will be at least partly visible from Asia to the Americas, although those in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East will have the best view. In a moment, we're going to talk with our science advisor, head of the EnterpriseMission.com, Richard C. Hoagland, about all things space in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. I'm George Norrie, definitely deep in the heart of Texas at the studios of KTRH, where we had a major event tonight. And as I said, 1,300 people showed up at the Verizon Theater. Had just a wonderful time just talking about the program and answering questions. And we did a little book signing for people who came by. Had an opportunity to see my cousin and her 2 kids. And just a great time. But we're back here now, ready to do the program for you. And don't forget, a little bit later on, we'll have our sort of full moon open lines for you. Richard C. Hoagland, of course, heads up the EnterpriseMission.com. And there are so many things going on in space this week. I thought it'd be a good idea to bring him in this hour. We'll open up the phone lines with Richard in about 20 minutes or so. Richard, how are you, my friend?
Good evening, George. You're in one of my old stomping grounds, good old Houston, Texas.
This is a
solar system, not just Mars. And every planet that has an atmosphere, from Venus all the way out to Pluto, George, is experiencing global warming. They're all getting hotter.
Then
Pluto,
why aren't some of these other scientists agreeing with that?
Oh, yeah.
It is true. It's a fact, but they don't use that.
Unacknowledged fact by the global warming crowd here on Earth, who, for political reasons, don't really want to talk about that for some reason. But, in fact, all across the solar system, everything is getting warmer. Now, our model, our HD model, says this is part of a grand natural cycle of the solar system, which is coming up to a crescendo maybe as soon as 2012. It could be part of that ancient set of, knowledge and prophecies from Mayans and other indigenous cultures.
Sure.
The fact is we're looking at real data, real spacecraft, real telescope, real science here, and there's no question it's going on. It's just not been acknowledged in the mainstream until the Geographic a couple days ago chose to put forward this Russian climatologist's views and data saying what we said on our show back in, I think it was 2004.
All right. So global warming has all kinds of possibilities. We're putting together a major roundtable discussion on it. I want you to be part of it. I want you to kind of look at it as the science advisor, okay?
Okay.
When we put this together, I may get someone like Lowell Ponte, who was on last night.
I listened carefully to him last night.
He's tough.
He's tough. He's accurate. He's incredibly political. I mean, he obviously has a political axe to grind against Al Gore.
Oh, he does not like Al Gore. No doubt about that.
But good, honest, sharp-edged opinions are what makes democracy. So I was very pleased that he was sticking to his guns. He seems to have done his homework. It would be refreshing to have a really honest debate. And if you could get Al Gore in the mix, that would be super cool. I don't think with him it's going to happen. But
he will be invited.
That would be a very gracious thing to do, George.
We've got up on the Coast to Coast AM website the incredible pictures of Saturn. I assume you have them or will have them on the EnterpriseMission.com website.
We will, and I looked at them, and they are stunning. I mean, can you imagine that this spacecraft, the size of a Greyhound bus, has been orbiting Saturn now for, something like 2 years, maybe a little less, all by its little lonesome, robotic control, taking these images with stunning, long-focused telescopes.
Great city, and I had been here very briefly many years ago. It looks like the place is brand new. I mean, buildings have popped up. It's an affluent city, but I mean, it is
Texas
clean.
Oil money.
Yeah, it is. They've done a great job.
To the Johnson Space Center?
No, I have not. I haven't had that kind of time. Tom and I flew in early today. Just got back from the event about an hour or so ago, and we're here doing the program, and then I'm back in Los Angeles tomorrow morning. So it's a bang bang day, but I've got to come back again and spend some time here.
It would be cool if you went down there. There's a lot of really great people in NASA, and you get to meet them when you get outside Washington. And of course, that's one of the new old headquarters for the new Return to the Moon and On to Mars part of NASA's program, which obviously I'm very interested in.
I am going to throw a lot of things your way this hour. One, of course, is I want to get your reaction to this Russian scientist who says that I might as well get your hat in the ring on this, one way or another. Okay. Global warming is natural. It is not human-induced. It's because of the sun. Now, that's his theory. How about you? You've had a chance to look at a lot of different people. You've read a lot of reports from various scientists and experts and climatologists. What do you say?
Well, that was a report that came out through the National Geographic earlier this week, and I was kind of intrigued that a mainstream news organization like the Geographic, which covers everything from geology to exploration to climatology to, the latest bandwagon of global warming, would actually cite him and list some of his papers. I don't think he's correct in one sense. He says it's natural. You think it's a cycle. Mm-hmm. I think it's a cycle. I think it's a hyperdimensional cycle. I think what we're doing with fossil fuels and carbon and methane emissions and all that is exacerbating a problem which already exists, and it's only making it worse. But I think that he's right for the wrong reasons, because he's looking at the sun as the culprit. The problem is, if you look at solar data, I mean, he cited, I believe, 3 Martian seasons of melting at the Martian polar caps.
Right.
We discussed this on our show, David Wilcox and I, who did a series called Interplanetary Weather that was kind of loosely based around some of the ideas in Art and Whitley's book, Global Coming Superstorm. Mm-hmm. And we looked at all kinds of mainstream data from all across